Today's episode is brought to you by HERdacity. HERdacity is a nonprofit inspiring confidence in women to achieve their professional goals. For resources, networking opportunities, and a strong community of women, visit HERdacity.org to learn more.
Welcome to HERdacious, a podcast for audacious women. Happy fall to you all. My name is Lorelei, and welcome to HERdacious, the podcast for audacious women looking for a little Femme support on their career journeys. Today, we're going to be talking about doing well by doing good. And to join me in this conversation, I have the founder of Kanti Goods, which is a socially responsible mother-daughter company, Miss Ernestine Lammers.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm honored to be a part of your podcast and sharing our journey and our story.
It's our pleasure. Now, for those of you who might not know about Kanti Goods is a female-owned business that supports female entrepreneurs and artisans around the world, helping them create a livelihood for themselves and their families. Now, Ernestine, you started a successful business whose mission is also about equity, sustainability, and empowering women. How did you start out on this journey of becoming an entrepreneur while also wanting to make a difference in the world through your business?
We started from the heart. We never really had a real plan to start a business. A little bit about my background. I was a teacher and I was teaching kids. And when we moved to the United States, and on a certain point, I was kind of in between jobs. And that was also the time that our daughter decided to give back. And she lived a year in India and then she lived a year in Nepal. And of course, when we were visiting her there, we find all those artisans and women, and they making beautiful, beautiful things. But the most important thing was that, of course, they wanted to sell that stuff to us. And I want to buy it all. But the amazing thing was they were more talking about how they were making it. And if they're making the product, how that supported their families. I don't know if that did the trigger to me or the beautiful goods that I like so much. So I just started buying a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of weeks ago, my daughter called me again and said, "Hey, Mom, I find this great women organization and they're making all these beautiful stuffed animals. And these women are all victims from human trafficking and domestic violence. Can we buy the stuffed animals?" Of course we can buy the stuffed animals. So now we have earrings and stuffed animals. So that was the point that we said, hey, we need to do something with it. So we just went to a local market and we started selling our stuff. And that's kind of how we started.
I love that. How did you get the name Kanti Goods?
Well, Kanti means beautiful. So we have beautiful goods from beautiful people with beautiful stories. And it means beautiful in Sanskrit. So we felt that was a beautiful word. So
I love that.
And then our saying is always be beautiful, be Kanti.
Oh, nice. What made you decide to become a socially responsible company once you saw that you had a business model?
Well, again, I think this is probably what happens a lot with entrepreneurs and people that start businesses. You start a business, and when you are starting a business, it kind of happens. And I want to share a story with that, if that's okay. Then, because when I started with Kanti, I was always in love with all the beautiful Asia products like Buddhas and beautiful statues. And I thought, I'm going to import all those and I'm going to sell them here. And in the meantime, I was working with my daughter to find all the artisans and women organizations that we could help. So we had kind of two lines. And then with the one line, I had it all imported, and I went with that line to antique stores and people that want to buy it. And I came with my car and opened my trunk, and they pointed out, yeah, we like that one, and here is the money you want to have with it. It's like, oh, that is not satisfying. That is, I don't know. I kind of felt more like maybe a drug dealer that want to give stuff. And it's like, So that decided to me, that's not the route I wanted to go. So the other route was that we met this girl, and her name is Neha. And when we met Neha in Nepal, she showed us her beautiful necklaces. And Neha told us that she and her family were making these necklaces, and her dream was to go to nursing school. So I said, oh, if I can help her to fill that dream, that's the direction we want to go. So that's how it started 10 years ago. And over the years, we really, really developed that more and more. So now we are only supporting women organizations and artisans. It doesn't always have to be female artisans.
Okay.
Because we have male artisans, and we have a beautiful story about Dunbar, our silver artist. But you also have to realize in those countries, you have to go sometimes to the male leaders to get the women involved. So now Dunbar, we're working with him for 10 years, and we keep asking him all the time, Dunbar, why are you not having women working for you? And he tells me, well, what we do is with a hammer, and that's men's work. And we can disagree with that, but that's the culture. So we have to, when you work with countries like that, you really have to respect that culture.
Yeah.
But over the years, he started respecting me as a leader and as a businesswoman. And now when I'm asking him to do this, and guess what? Now he's hiring women to help him with his business.
But they're not using a hammer.
They're not using a hammer, they're doing the polishing. But
Right, okay.
It's women that are there. You never know. If they start polishing, maybe women are super creative. Bit by bit, they can start maybe designing and doing other stuff with that.
Yes, ma'am. So let's say some of our listeners might have similar feelings about wanting to start up a business that is responsible for more than their bottom line. A business that does good in the world. Maybe it addresses sustainability, the environment, equity, justice, what have you. How would you suggest they get started, since you had a very interesting learning curve starting your business?
Well, I agree with that. The two biggest things for me is adjust as you go and be brave, but do it one step at a time.
Expand on that.
Okay, so being brave is if you have an idea, sometimes you don't know where the idea brings you. So we start exploring this idea and we start thinking about it. And I was talking with my daughter about it. And because she lived there, we could really find artisans that were really that we wanted to help to get the next step. But I think also it doesn't always mean that you have to do it the way we do it, that you have to go to another country and, help the planet there. So, I mean, with one step at a time, we also have to realize we cannot change the world in one thing. We can just not do it. But if we all will do a little part, maybe when we tell the stories and when we do something differently, maybe that will help. But you also have to realize, where is your passion? So maybe somebody is very passionate about animals, or maybe somebody is very passionate about homeless people, or somebody is very passionate about people that get out of a job, or divorced people, or children, or education. So I really think you have to find your passion, because then it really got much more meaning. And then I think you can adjust as you go much better. I also think what you said, that you like to give back in a company, it doesn't always have to be that way, because you can also think of it that you make a profit and you want to give a part of your profit to a nonprofit. Or you can say, hey, we have a beautiful boutique and we like to have a line that will give back. So now, because you only have to search for the right products, but now your company becomes automatically a give back company, but you are open for taking on products that have a give back component in there or a sustainability component. So again, you don't have to always do it yourself. You can also partner up with other companies that doing something like that to bring that in your company, because that helps both. That helps companies like me, but it helps you as well. So now together you will be so much stronger.
Yes. Were there any unexpected hurdles that you faced as a female entrepreneur that we can shine a light on for other women to possibly avoid or be forewarned about?
Oh, absolutely. I have a whole list of this.
Okay. Bring the list.
Okay. And I think some of them are really women related, but I think some of them are more entrepreneurial related. I think as women, we have to work much harder to prove ourselves. Because I think when you start as an entrepreneur, a business, they always think, oh, kind of a kitchen project, we don't know where this goes. So it really starts counting when on a certain point you're 5 years down the road and people, oh, Kanti, you're still there? Yeah, and I'm not going anywhere either. So, and now finally you start getting the respect.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to also realize that what you're doing is not for everybody. So I'm very passionate about helping women and artisans around the world to bring the goods over here, because I have traveled always a lot. I moved from the Netherlands. We have traveled over the world. So we see that. But if you've never traveled, how would you know that? So for me, it was super important to support that. And I was so passionate about it. And I also thought that everybody else would be passionate about it. Till somebody came to me, it's like, oh, you're supporting the women abroad? What about the women here? Yeah, I was a little bit silent about that. I didn't know how to answer that at that point. But I think that comes from over the years, your experience, but also talking with other leaders and other people in your field, that finally you start really feeling comfortable with it and say, yeah, no, I agree with you about that, but this is my passion. My passion is that I support that. And there's other people that have a passion for that. And I will definitely support that as well. But this is my passion. So you have to really learn what your passion is, but also dare to speak it out on a certain point and dare to say it.
All right. What else?
So there was another story that I had to learn from the beginning. Again, it was my passion to give back, talk about it and sharing the stories. And then somebody said to me, are you making money with that? And I thought, oh, and till the day, I still didn't know how she meant it. Now, I'm much longer in this field. I would ask that question back to her. How did you mean that? So did she mean it because you want to do good and you're making money off of that? Or, wow, you're doing something with those products. Can you make money off of that? So I still don't know how she meant it. But answering both of the questions, yes, I think you can run a business, making money and do good. I think it's not always that you have to be a nonprofit to do good. There's so many awesome companies. Think of Tom's, buy one, give one. So many companies are doing that. They set an example for a lot of people that can do that. And I think we have to listen to that and try to not mimic that, but try to do something good with that.
And on that note, we're going to do something good for our show and take a brief sponsor break.
Hi, Barbie here from Moonray, husband and wife indie pop duo. If you enjoy the intro music, we invite you to listen to our debut EP, Honeymoon, streaming now on all platforms. Visit www.moonray-music.com for more.
And we're back with Ernestine Lammers of Kanti Goods, where we're going to pick right back up where we left off, talking about unexpected hurdles that she faced as a female entrepreneur. Ernestine?
We all have to learn to recognize the hurdles. Sometimes you don't know that you have to adjust to something because you're doing it all the time over and over. And I can give you an example for that. When I was in the beginning, I was doing the pricing. And I thought, okay, I bring it from the country and I bring it over here and I do the pricing. And I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, pricing is really, really hard.
Yeah.
If you are a product-related company or a service-related company, we all undervaluate ourselves. But it's also hard that you have to have the pricing right, that people still want to use you. Mm-hmm. So I thought I did the pricing right for my products. And on my first market, this man, like one of those salespersons forever, ever, so a leader in his field, he came up to me, he said, hey, Missy. And I was like, okay, but, I felt like, I kind of was looking up to him at that point, but it was like, he said, get a pencil and change all your prices. You have to double the prices. And I was like, oh, okay. But at that point, I was like, okay, I maybe need to listen to him because he has the experience that I don't have because this is my first market.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at that point, I thought my pricing was right. So I didn't saw that hurdle, but it was a hurdle. And at that point, it was so right because it became down the road that I was talking to more women owners from women companies and women organizations or stores. And then you start learning that the pricing is a super important thing to value yourself. So I was super lucky that I was with a women owner from a boutique here in Austin, and she's a fantastic leader in her field. And I learned a lot from her because she was talking with me about the wholesale pricing, and that had all to relate to that. So I think pricing is definitely a hurdle that I never thought I had. I really had to adjust my pricing. And even every couple of years, you have to adjust your pricing to see where you need to go. So that is definitely a hurdle I needed to really overcome for myself.
Well, I want to dig into that for just a second. How did you learn to price your products in a way that both valued your business and the artisans and solopreneurs in other countries to value their products as well?
The value of what you're doing at your company, you have to really look into yourself again. And you have to also trust yourself that that is what you want to do with it. And that comes back to another hurdle that you have to overcome because you have to stick with your core values. And sometimes we are floating off of our core values. And I can tell you a little bit about that because on a certain point, I also want to give back locally. I didn't want to only support the artisans there, but I want to give back locally. And I think we all have that in us, that we want to give back. But on a certain point, I was so focused on giving back locally that I kind of lost my core value. So I really had to look back to my company again and say, no, my goal that I started this was that I wanted to support those artisans. So again, a hurdle that you probably don't know is happening, but it happens over time. So I think it's always good every 2 years to look back at your company and also get some other women in there that you value as leaders in your field or in their field or something totally separate. Say, hey, I want you to look at me. So I think it's super important for us to overcome hurdles, to connect with other leaders and ask for their opinion.
What other lessons did you learn when you were overcoming some of these various challenges in your startup process?
Well, I really feel I need to talk a little bit about COVID because I think, I know we don't want to talk about it, but I think a lot of companies had to struggle with that and had to pivot, or I more like to say swivel themselves.
Oh, okay.
So in the beginning when it happened, and I think I can probably talk with a lot of companies about that, we all want to hide and we think it's going away. Well, unfortunately, it's not going away. So you have to find, again, other women and other people that you can learn from. And for me, it's one of my women organization. They called me or text messaged me because that's how we communicate. And they said, hey, I know you're probably not selling stuffed animals at the moment, but we are making masks. Would you be open for us to buy masks? And I first thought, oh, masks, that's not what I want to sell. But in the end, that's what we did. We start buying masks for this women group. And now are they making those beautiful masks? So we can still come back to my core value that I want to support those women. But in the meantime, it didn't feel good to really sell them. So we gave the first $1,000. We donated to all local nonprofit organizations here, women organizations. So I think the other learning curve with this whole thing is that you have to really look where you're good at. And then you have to say, I'm good at that. Let's see how I can use that when you have to adjust like a goal like that. So I always say I'm not a really good salesperson, but I'm a storyteller. I can tell the story. So maybe I should reach out to Facebook or doing something different. And this is an advice that I can give to everybody that is in a business. Try something different. Just get out your comfort zone. I think we all need to get out our comfort zone. And COVID kind of forced you to get out your comfort zone. And I think also you are able to connect with more women leaders that you probably never could reach, but people have more time now. So just reach out to them and you will be surprised that they will give you a call back and they have time for you this time. So I really, really advise to all the women leaders to help entrepreneurs to get to the next step. But I also want to call out all the entrepreneurs to reach out to the leaders because everybody wants to talk to you.
On that point, how did you go about developing that core group of people that would give you quality feedback for your business?
I think networking is a key component for all women entrepreneurs. And I think women are really, really good at networking. And I think some male colleagues are sometimes jealous that we have those women groups because we can make little networks and make a spider web and then we are all strong together. And believe me, I have done all the network groups that are probably in Austin. So I've done a lot. So again, an advice is to find a network group that you feel good with. And I will not say that you feel comfortable with because sometimes you need to get out your comfort zone.
Oh.
So I think sometimes you need to go to a network group that will challenge you. When you keep talking about your story and when you keep sharing your story, you will find women that love to work with you. And that becomes your trusted group of people. Your people that, and I think also your reliable people and the people that you can ask, hey, I want to try this. I'm going to do Facebook Live. And really, I'm not a Facebook Live person, but I did this for the first time. So I was so proud of myself. But I asked my trust people, my 5 trustworthy people, to listen in with me and give me the feedback. Because I think it's also very important to ask for feedback. And sometimes that's not the feedback you want to hear. But if you surround yourself with the right people, they will give you feedback in the right positive way. Because I think it's so important to give feedback in a positive way so people can do something with it.
Right.
Even how negative it is, try always to take one positive thing in it and do something with it.
What are some of the business basics a budding entrepreneur needs to know?
I think this is for every business a little bit different, but there's definitely an overlap here. There is definitely an overlap. I think never stop learning. Never stop learning. You know how simple it is. Never stop learning. Social media is such a big thing. The young people are so good at that. I'm not so good at that, but I want to learn it and they need to teach me that. So I want to have discussions with them, how that goes. So also reach out to that younger group of people. So they maybe not in the leaders yet with the experience you have, but they have so many other skills that they can bring to the table. So I think that is one of the things I love to work with young people because they can learn from me and I can learn a lot from them. The other thing is don't hesitate to find similar businesses. We all are so afraid for competition. And I think similar businesses go to similar problems or similar good things. And maybe you can help each other with that. So I always thought that I would be a big competitor from a jewelry business, but actually I'm not. I'm a very good add-on because they love to have, when I come back to what I said before, they love to have a social responsible good in their store. I never thought of that. So reach out to similar businesses that maybe have similar, you can learn from that. One of the things that I want to give as an advice, and sometimes it's hard to also recognize your own mistakes, but I think it's something good that you share that. I probably started with too many products right away.
Oh.
If I had to do it over, I would start with less products. But I liked so many artisans. I liked so many of the products. I bought all the different colors. I probably should have never done that. So as an advice, start small. Start small. That's a big advice I want to give. And I think the other thing is people think that businesses happened overnight. Well, that's not happening. You need to have money or you need to have, at least a way that you can live for yourself, at least in half year to start your business. So I think every entrepreneur will say that.
So plan for a budget.
Yeah.
Lastly, what are some resources you would recommend to our listeners who are wanting to start on their journey of doing well by doing good?
reach out to those leaders in the field. Reach out to them and read a lot of the great podcasts at the moment, a lot of out there. So I'm listening a lot of those podcasts, and from people in that field, I learn a lot from them. But reach out to people and ask for help. I'm open to help everybody. I didn't even know that I was a leader in my field. The people start saying that to me. It's like, oh, and you probably have the same thing. You probably are a leader in your field, but you don't know that. And it's great to share the stories with other people. I cannot say enough to everybody, reach out to women, other entrepreneurs that are leaders in your field. But also try to reach out to women that you probably think you never can reach out to, but just try it and you will be surprised.
Okay. Anything else?
So the one thing, and I touched that before, but I cannot say that enough, that networking is so important. So from all the groups that I tried out, I'm now a member of Austin Women Alliance. That's an amazing women group. And Darlene Templeton. She's the founder of that. I can highly recommend for every woman to just try it out because there's a big diversity in that group, what I really like. I'm also a member from a BNI group because I also like to be in a group with other business people, not only women, but men, because men have a totally different look at businesses than women have. So I think sometimes it's also good to have that perspective as well. I think in the beginning, I had the tendency to take everything personal. And I had a very good friend. He's a business entrepreneur. And he always keeps saying to me, Ernestine, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. And that was really good advice because I took everything personal in the beginning. So that was a really good advice that I got. And then I'm also a member from the Women Council. And the Women Council is an organization that certified women-owned businesses that you can pitch to larger companies. Oh. And it's a lot of people are intimidated by that because said, oh, why should I become a member from that? Because then I become a member from, I never will be in a Target store or in a JCPenney store. But all those women that are women have businesses, they like to do business with other women businesses. So that becomes their own network. So for me, those three network groups are my core people that I ask for advice. They become my peer people that I can rely on. If I need to try something out, I'm definitely calling them and ask them if they can help me talk it through. If I'm down about my business, I can talk to them because they know that you go up and down with business. Am I excited about something? I think, hey, I want to share this with you. So I think these became my core group. And I think everybody needs to look for those core groups.
Of course. Any last words of advice?
Just do it. Be beautiful. Be Kanti.
Excellent. Thank you, Ernestine. Well, we will round off the month of October with one last spooky femme fact. And this one is related to the most popular costume of the season, possibly in all of Halloween history. Ernestine, can you guess what costume or what character we're going to be discussing today?
I hope it's RBG.
No.
Oh, bummer.
Unfortunately, we're talking about witches.
Oh, bummer. Maybe we should make that the most popular costume.
We'll work on the RBG thing, but for this femme fact, we're going to discuss witches and the history of women and witchcraft. Witchcraft is said to be the practice of magical arts, including spells, charms, and various abilities that can range widely depending on the culture said witchcraft is being practiced. For example, in the Philippines, witches are viewed as those who are opposed to the sacred indigenous religions. In Asia, South America, and Africa, witches supposedly use supernatural means to cause harm to the innocent. And in cultures around the globe, witchcraft exists in a healing context, whereby the terminology witch, like a witch doctor, is used to refer to healers or herbalists. Briefly shifting our focus to the history of witches in North America, the main historical event that usually pops into people's minds is the Salem witch trials in the late 1600s. That, or the movie The Crucible. So back in the 1600s, the idea of witches and unexplainable things was anathema to most religious societies at the time. Because of these fears and superstitions, the Massachusetts Salem witch trials resulted in 20 people losing their lives, 14 women and 6 men. But let's backtrack even earlier to around 900 BCE, where one of the earliest records of witches exists, in the book of Samuel in the Bible, telling the story of prophecy and the subsequent tragedy. But mid-15th century Europe is really when witch hysteria took off, with Germany taking the cake, having the highest witchcraft execution rate on the continent. Witches were defined as comrades of the devil. It is said that they met with the devil at night to pledge their allegiance, engage in sex, and sacrifice children, and harass pregnant women, and even make men impotent by stealing their genitals, if you can believe that. You got to read up on this. But besides all the people being murdered, some of the stuff people used to blame on witches was hilarious and outright absurd. Speaking of absurd, women were far more likely to be accused of practicing witchcraft because of their, drumroll please, their temperament. Yeah, this idea is thought to have originated from a 1487 text called The Hammer of Witches by writer and later inquisitor Heinrich Kramer, who described women as being chiefly addicted to evil superstitions. He further outlines his analysis of women, blaming their greed, their credulous nature, and their feeble minds on our inability to control our passions, making us inherently susceptible to the devil's influence. And ladies, it gets better. He goes on to describe women as, and I quote, a foe to friendship, an inescapable punishment, a necessary evil, a natural temptation, a desirable calamity, a domestic danger, a delectable detriment, an evil of nature painted with fair colors. So clearly this guy had some issues. Now, to further disenfranchise women, many of the women accused of witchcraft in the 15th to 17th centuries were usually extremely poor. They were elderly, they were single, they were widowed, or they were non-conforming women of some independence. Women who were accused of practicing witchcraft were subsequently imprisoned, tortured, and often executed. Throughout Europe during the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries, an estimated 90,000 people were formally accused of witchcraft, with roughly 40,000 to 60,000 of them having been burned at the stake. Furthermore, women made up around 80% of the accused. Fortunately enough, today, women are not being literally burned at the stake as much anymore. But that's not to say that we are not being figuratively burned at the political or social stake when we stand out as powerful, independent, wise individuals who sometimes exist outside of what is currently viewed as a norm in society. And it's important to acknowledge that we've made great strides in gender equality and in social justice, but we've still got a long way to go. And I hope that we at HERdacious and those at Kanti Goods can be a small part of that journey as we constantly progress towards inclusivity, female equity, and liberation. Ernestine, thank you for your guidance and for your stories today. I so appreciated you joining us.
It was my honor all the way.
For all of y'all listening, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the show, please subscribe and share with a friend or family member who you think might want a little bit of Femme support on their career journey. So until next time, my witchy friends, remember, everyone deserves a chance to fly.